Hi there, and welcome into the House Hardcourt. Zach Heenan, Rob Warner, and Zach. Super Bowl Sunday came and went, and for San Francisco, for the 49ers, it seemed like on Groundhog Day they saw a shadow of themselves.
He does know this is a basketball show, right? Let's get right into basketball, and we can talk about the sport that we all came here for. ASU with a mixed bag of results this past week.
If you're watching this show, then I'm sure you're a fan of all things ASU sports. And if that's the case, then I'm sure you've heard the Cali Devils phrase thrown around by the football program. But what about basketball, and what does it mean? Well, with ASU Hoops getting ready to host the LA schools this week, the impact of these games is enormous. Not just for this season's outlook, but really for the future as well. The Sun Devils are in the process of trying to sign their best recruiting class in program history. They already have Marcus Bagley, and yeah, that's Marvin's little brother, signed out of California, and are working on another elite prospect from the Golden State as well. His name is Josh Christopher, a 5-star top 10 player in the country. ASU signed his brother Caleb Christopher last year, and Josh is a coveted national target this cycle. With UCLA right in there in his top 5, it's going to be crucial for ASU to put on its own show against Hollywood in its home arena this week. This is a kid who has a higher ranking than James Harden, and we all know how he turned out. So, will Josh Christopher be next? This week may tell us all we need to know.
I am so excited to see Marcus Bagley at Desert Financial Arena, or whatever they end up calling the sponsor, by the time that he gets to Tempe. But we do have to take a step back and realize that the team has to make do with what they have right now. And that's why we bring on basketball analyst Ryan McClure to talk all about what's headed up next for the Sun Devil team.
Well, up next is the rest of Pac-12 play, and it's going to be a challenging Pac-12 play, especially with the pressure on the Sun Devil team to make it into that tournament. So in order to make it into the tournament, what needs to happen? Well, you take a look at the schedule. You have the Oregon game. You have the Stanford game. Those are two challenging games headed into that game. Into those two games, ASU is going to be faced with a big, big challenge. But we take a look at the rest of the schedule. They're going to have to get it done against the other opponents. Washington State's an opponent they lost to that they're going to play in the last game of the season. How will they handle that? So the question is, can they beat Oregon and Stanford, and then how will they play against the rest of the conference?
And we discussed the rest of the conference, but we look at the previous losses that this team has had, and there's some bad losses in there. Will any of those, and are there any of those that'll affect the bracketology?
100%. There's plenty of losses that's going to affect the bracketology, starting with the first game of the season, the Colorado game. The Colorado is now a team that is ranked, so that doesn't look as bad. And then you look at the St. Mary's game. St. Mary's another team that is ranked right now. They weren't at the time of the loss, and that was a big loss, 96-56. That's a big loss to an unranked team at the time. Creighton's another team they've lost to. Washington State, I mentioned them earlier. That's a team that they play, like I said, last game of the season. So these losses, they're out of their control. But the question is, how are they going to be able to handle it the rest of the season? How are they going to bounce back and use the momentum they have right now to make it into this tournament?
It's a team that's shown they can bounce back, especially against Arizona. What a comeback win they had there. But Ryan, what needs to happen if this team really does want to go dancing? Are there any games coming up to keep our eye on?
Well, we previewed the rest of the season, but the question is, how is ASU going to manage the rest of the season? The Oregon and the Stanford game, we talked about those two games. In my opinion, they're going to need to at least split one of those two games if they want to make it into the tournament. And then the rest of the games, they have 8 other games they're going to play besides those two, Oregon and Stanford. They're going to have to win 7, if not 8 of those games if they want to make it into the tournament. And then always, of course, there is the Pac-12 tournament. If they win that, the chances are very slim. But if they do win that, there's an automatic bid into the tournament. So when you take a look at the rest of the schedule, there are many possibilities into how this team can get into the tournament still.
Well, it could be a grim outlook. There is another sport at ASU that, even though we're on the House Hardcourt, we can discuss, and that's why Rob Warner has the latest on ASU football recruiting.
7-6 and 8-5. Not incredible football records in 2 years, but not bad. These were the first couple of seasons for a new era of Arizona State football. These were the first 2 of the Herm Edwards era, one that was met with tons of skepticism and negativity before it even began. His first 2 years actually exceeded expectations. But it's important to recognize Edwards inherited a large majority of the roster from Todd Graham early on. He's had success snatching quarterback Jaden Daniels from some elite programs who wanted the talented dual-threat signal caller. ASU is now without Brandon Ayuk, Eno Benjamin, Kobe Williams, and some veteran offensive linemen. With all that said, though, ASU might actually be better next season. Edwards and his staff recruited 2 4-star running backs, 4 four-star wide receivers headlined by LV Bunkley Shelton and 6'6" Johnny Wilson, who was committed to Oregon until Edwards and his team flipped him to ASU. For Daniels, it seems like his options this year might be similar to a child walking into a candy store. On Wednesday, Herm Edwards delivered ASU its best recruiting class by average star ranking in the internet era. That class is good for number 23 in the nation, according to 24/7 Sports. And those records I mentioned at the beginning, those seem like they're going to continue to improve as long as Edwards and his staff keep recruiting the way they are. It's built for pumping the lifeblood of college football. But will all these good recruiters be equally good developers? We'll start to find that out when ASU takes the grass for its season opener on September 3rd.
And this ASU team has come out firing on all cylinders as Robbie Ryan takes the ball. She hits the screen, open look, bang! That's 2 points. You gotta love it.
The electricity, the tension, palpable. I love the Blaze Radio Call of the Week every single week.
Makes this show what it is.
Well, what it is over, unfortunately. So men's basketball takes on UCLA tonight. Pac-12 Networks, that's one to watch if this team wants to go dancing. From all of us here at the House Hardcourt, we'll see you next week.